Hey everyone, I'm so glad that you took time to join us online from wherever you're tuning in around the world. In fact, I'm so grateful for technology like this that allows us to connect together in, so many different places. We want to welcome you today to Ringgold Church, especially Ringgold Church Online. If this is your first time checking us out, we're so thankful that you are. We'd love for you to check out our website at ringgoldchurch.com. Now, here's some of the things that you'll find on our website that's so important. For parents who are tuning in, we have a special live and on-demand service for our kids through 5th grade. We also are doing in-person services now with our kids at 9 a.m. here on campus, 3-year-olds through 5th grade, as well as adult worship at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. In person here. It's all ready for you. You can also check out our students page. They're meeting on campus on Friday nights at 6 p.m. So check out our website. Today, we're continuing our series of messages called The Waymaker. Now, if you recognize that word, it's because we've been singing a song around here lately with that title. And this is the title of the song, Waymaker. In fact, the lyrics go like this: Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. Yes, that is who he is. So right now, I bet many of you are deeply concerned about the growing stress that you feel. Maybe it's the disruption in our daily lives and routines that have maybe not come back as quickly as what we thought. And maybe there's been an economic impact that's, causing some of this stress and disruption in your life. Maybe it's the uncertainty about the future or the feelings of isolation that you're going through right now with maybe not doing some of the things that you were used to doing just a year ago. This is enough to increase all of our levels of anxiety. In fact, maybe right now you're beginning to question God. One time in Mark chapter 4, after a long day of exhausting ministry, Jesus gets into a boat with his disciples. He goes below deck and basically falls asleep. And as he's asleep, this unexpected storm just comes out of nowhere. The storm is waging, and the waves and the wind, and it's just crazy. The rain is really coming down pretty hard. The disciples, they begin to panic. They run below deck, and that's where Jesus is. And what do they find Jesus doing? Jesus isn't pacing back and forth. Jesus isn't worried. He's not sitting there, wringing his hands, and Jesus is sleeping. The disciples question him right there in that moment. They say, Jesus, don't you care about us? Don't you care about the storm that we're in? Well, maybe right now that question deeply resonates with your heart and mind, because right now there are some of you, and you've worked so hard maybe for the business that you have, maybe the job that you've been in for several years, and now you're at risk of losing a business or losing a job. So you're crying out to God and you say, God, don't you care? God, how are we supposed to care for our medical professionals who are on the front lines of all this, for several weeks and months now? Maybe they don't have the supplies that they need to do their job. And God, don't you care? God, how am I supposed to manage working from home when my kids are going to school at home? They're driving me crazy. God, how am I supposed to get along with my brothers and sisters when they're always under the same roof together without a break of routine? They're getting on my nerves. God, this new normal is almost unbearable. God, don't you care? God, somebody that I love has had a medical emergency and they were rushed to the hospital, but we're not allowed to be with them. And God, it breaks my heart. God, don't you care? For maybe some of you seniors, God, this is my senior year, and I was looking forward to all the events that's connected with being a senior in high school, and now all this is up in the air. Don't know what's going to happen. My life seems to be evaporating right before me. God, don't you care? God, these retirement years were supposed to be the best years of our lives. We're supposed to go on a cruise every 6 months, and now we can't even get on a ship. But now, due to this economic uncertainty, we're not even sure what tomorrow holds. God, don't you care? So maybe as you begin to feel that question today in your heart and your mind, and maybe you've even vocalized that question out loud, these words come across your lips and you feel a little bit maybe guilty and questioning God. I'm like, I can't question God. I want you to know this. Please don't feel guilty for questioning God. It's okay. God can handle it. In fact, God invites us coming to him and sharing our hearts, our questions. In fact, this is when Jesus shows up in Mark chapter 4, when the disciples had the courage and the transparency to question him. They rush to Jesus. They wake him up. They say, Jesus, don't you care? This was right there in the moment when Jesus acted and he did a miracle. Jesus stood up and he said to the storm, knock it off, be still. And the waves, the rain, the winds, the storm obeyed him. Today, we need a miracle. Amen? We need a miracle worker. And I believe God is a waymaker. And he's going to make a way where there seems like there's no way. He's already making a way for us through this really, really challenging time. Now, maybe today you believe that in your head, that statement, that God is the waymaker. He's going to prepare. But you're like, Don, I want to believe this, but how is God going to do it? Like, I'm running out of patience here. I'm not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. When is God going to do this? And I think one of the reasons why this season we are in is so painful and why it's so like fear-inducing. And here's what's happening to all of us. We are being forced away from self-reliance, all right, us being in control, to complete reliance on God control. You see, we're a very self-reliant people. If we have a challenge or we're facing some sort of crisis, we're like, tell us what to do. We'll develop a plan. We'll develop solutions. We're going to go after this. We're going to knock it out of the park. And I think one of the things that's unusual about this time in our lives is, we don't have a lot of answers. We're like, what do we do? Where do we turn? So we can't just rely upon ourselves. So much of all of this that we're going through is outside of our control. So right now, I want to invite you to lean into God and to lean into him more than ever before. Maybe that's hard for some of you because maybe you're struggling because you don't believe in God. Or maybe you have a faith in God, but maybe this whole time period has rocked your faith in God. So in those moments of doubt, what we need is a clear understanding of who God really is. We need to examine the attributes and the characteristics of God. And those can only be found in the names of God. Now, I don't know about you, but I always kind of grew up thinking God's name was pretty straightforward. His name is God. It means God. But actually, God has a whole bunch of names. There are 23 compound names in the Bible given for God. So there's like El Elyon and El Shaddai. There are more than 40 compound names given for Jehovah. Jehovah Shalom, Jehovah Jireh. So the question is, why does God have all these names? Why is it necessary for God to have a whole bunch of different names? Does God get bored with one name? Does he change his name every once in a while because of that? This is not the reason that God has all these names. God has various names for a couple of primary reasons. And the name actually describes his relationship with his people, with us. Now, I have several different names that I go by. Most of you know me as Don or Pastor Don. My kids call me Daddy or Dad. My grandkids, they call me Grandpa. In Indiana, where I grew up, they call me Donnie. I've kind of gotten past that one. A whole bunch of you call me Pastor Don. Some of my close friends call me DC. Now, not everybody calls me by the same name. The name actually defines and describes to a certain extent the relationship that I have with you as a person. This is one of the reasons that God has different names. His desire for us is to know him and to know him better. So he gives us these different names that help us in our relationship with him, to understand who he is. David one time wrote this in Psalms chapter 9 and verse 10. Those who know your name trust in you. For you, O Lord, do not abandon those who search for you. Now, God doesn't just ask you to trust him blindly. God's trust he asks of you is directly connected to his character. And the name describes his character. He is trustworthy. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 10. The name of the Lord is a strong fortress. The godly run to him and are safe. I think another interesting thing to know is not only do the names of God describe the relationship he has with us, but God is also describing the need we have as a people for him. When we have a certain need and we cry out to him, God gives us another one of his names, and he says, I will meet that need. Now, if we are in need of healing, and I think that we are, would you agree? God says he is our Jehovah Rapha, the Lord who heals you. Now, if we're in need of peace, which is where we're at right now, we need peace. We need peace personally. We need peace in our community. And folks, we need peace in our nation and in this world. God says, Jehovah Shalom, the Lord is peace. If we're in need of real community, and I believe that many people today are feeling very isolated and alone, and God says this, his name is Jehovah Shammah. Now, that means the Lord is there. The name of God comes out of the need of the people. The name of God that describes him tells us how he's going to meet that need in our lives. That's who he is. You see, every time that we have a need, there's always something that precedes it. It is this luminous thing that is striking fear in so many of our hearts. And that fear is uncertainty. Now, if you read through the history of the nation of Israel, uncertainty was the culprit. They struggle with uncertainty just like we do. The whole desert experience that they went through was because of the uncertainty behind it. These were people who wanted to know, where are we going? What is the answer? When will we emerge from this challenge? When will we get there? You ever been in a car and your kids in the back seat going, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? That's what it was like when God was driving the Israelites across the desert. So many of us have felt helpless right now because everything just feels out of our control. There's uncertainty. And we wonder, what can we really do? In Exodus chapter 3, there's a leader named Moses. And Moses felt this way. God asked Moses to step up in uncertain times and to be a leader. Moses' head was filled with all sorts of doubt. I can't do this. He was uncertain about his ability to make any sort of difference at all as a leader. So God responded to Moses and encouraged Moses, not by saying, hey, it's just going to be okay. God didn't give Moses a pep talk and say, hey, just dig deep inside and find that inner strength that you need and you'll succeed. God didn't look at Moses and say, Moses, you're good enough. You're smart enough. Doggone it, Moses, people love you. You'll be all right. This is not what God said. God looked at Moses and he gave Moses a name for who he is. And this is what the Lord our God said. God said in Exodus chapter 3, verse 13, but Moses protested, if I go to the people of Israel and tell them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they will ask me, what is his name? And then what should I tell them? God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. So there's God's name, I am. Now, you and I look at this and go, say what? It might seem a little vague to us. You might read that and say, what in the world is that supposed to mean? I am. But this is anything but vague. God was being crystal clear right here. In this moment, he's saying, through this name, I am, that he is the one everlasting and true God. He has no beginning and no end. He is whatever you need at any point and any time, no matter what you're going through, he is the great I am. Yahweh, the God who is. In that name, we discover the strength and the power that we need right now. It's not found from trying to muster it up from within, but it's leaning into who God is. He says to us as a people, I am what you need. So in these uncertain days, when we're not quite sure what tomorrow will bring, God says, would you just lean into me? Would you bring your uncertainties to me? There was a Dutch experiment done a number of years ago in which they separated volunteers into two groups of people. The first group was going to receive 20 intense electric shocks. Now, I just got to stop right here and say, who in the world goes, I'll do that. I'll sign up. We have a hard time getting people to volunteer for kids ministry, and people sign up for electric shock. I don't understand this, all right? But apparently people were interested in intense electric shock treatments, and they volunteered for it. But anyway, this is what they did. The second group of people, they're told they're going to receive 3 intense shocks and 17 very mild shocks. Now, here's the catch. They're not going to know when they're going to get the 3 intense shocks. And here's what the research showed. Those who only received 3 intense shocks as opposed to the 20, they demonstrated more, physiological stress and anxiety by sweating and having more rapid heartbeat than those who endured 20 hard shocks. The reason why is because they didn't know when the three were coming. Uncertainty. Do you see what that experiment is showing us? It wasn't actually about what was happening to them. It was about the uncertainty of when it would happen. And I think the most difficult thing about this time period in our lives that we're in is the uncertainty that it brings to us and all the questions that it stirs up in our hearts and minds. Well, what's going to happen this fall? What's going to happen this winter? How many more deaths could be on the horizon? How much longer we got to go through this? How much longer do I got to do social distancing? How much longer do I got to wear a mask? How much longer? Will my loved ones be safe? What's going to happen to my job? What's going to happen to my business? Those are real questions. I understand. But I want to encourage you with this. If you stay in that uncertainty for very long, what happens is it begins to breed fear. And fear is the real enemy here, folks, not the virus. Fear is what causes people to panic. Fear is what causes people to worry. Fear is what causes people to hoard food and supplies and toilet paper. Ringgold. We are not a people of fear. The number one command in God's word is simply two words: fear not. This is given to us 365 times. You ever think about that? I don't think that was by accident. That was intentional. I think God knew that every single day when we wake up, not just when we're in a crisis, but when we wake up, there's always something on the horizon that could potentially be that we could be fearful of. God says to us, I don't want you to be a people who live in fear. I want you to be a people who lean into me and trust in me. John Acuff said, fear is a feeling. Afraid is a choice. When fear shows up, I feel it fully, but then I have the choice to stay in it or choose hope. Some days I have to choose it 1,000 times. This fear is a feeling. It's very natural to feel that fear that happens in our lives, but being afraid is a choice. When you begin to feel fear, I want to encourage you to choose hope. And to choose hope not blindly, choose hope by really clinging to who God says He is in these moments. Go back and rehearse His attributes. Remember His character by remembering how He has come through for you in the past, by rehearsing His name in your heart and in your mind over and over and over again, standing on the promises of God. Now, how do you choose hope? It's by taking all the uncertainty that we all feel and taking all that energy and all that and channeling it into love. We begin to love other people really well through this crisis. I want you to understand this. The opposite of fear isn't faith. The opposite of fear isn't faith, it's love. God's word tells us this, 1 John chapter 4, verse 18. Such love has no fear, but perfect love expels all fear. God is a miracle worker, and I believe that He is already at work in all of this. I believe God is working miracles even as we speak, and God will continue to work miracles. This is what I know to be true. We will come through this together. It may not be overnight, but God is going to do some tremendous things in and through this in our lives. We are better together. First, we are better by leaning into Jesus. We're not leaning into ourselves. We're not leaning into Ringgold Church. We're leaning into Jesus. Secondly, we are better by leaning into each other. Loving God, loving each other. I think the way He's going to do it is by showing us that we can love each other really, really well. God is going to work miracles through His people. As we comfort people, as we reassure people, as we reach out in selfless love to meet the needs of others. Did you know the word comfort comes from two Latin words, two Latin terms? It simply means this: con and forte, to make strong together. You see, when we comfort one another, we are strengthening each other. We're being strong together. Now, we might be told to stay at home or socially isolate or wear masks, but now Right now, more than ever, we need each other like never before. We need to offer words of encouragement and words of comfort. We need to pray for one another. We need to encourage one another so that we can be made strong together. This is literally what it means to comfort. I love what Paul writes to the church in Corinth when they're going through a very similar crisis. He says to the church in Corinth in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 3, "All praise to God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. God is our merciful Father and source of all comfort. He comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others. And when they are troubled, we'll be able to give them the same comfort God has given us." So wherever hardships come, and it's not if, it's when. God proves to be near. God is near, and God is near in and through his people. Now, right now, more than ever, the church needs to step into this crisis and bring the hope that comes only through Jesus Christ, the miracle worker. You see, we want to be a light in our communities. We're going to encourage one another. We're going to pray for one another, and we're going to love one another. We're going to see what we can do to partner together with other churches in our community to shine the light of Jesus Christ brighter than ever. Now, I want to thank all of you who support Ringgold. I want to thank you for your generosity. I want to thank you for your prayers. I want to thank you for your encouragement as we seek to make a difference in this world in the name of Jesus Christ. We're making a difference. And when we look back on church history and we see that when Christianity got started, in the first century, it was just a small group of people, and it was just a small percentage of the Roman Empire, but it grew. It grew by leaps and bounds into a movement. And you got to ask yourself, how did it grow from such a small group of people, into such an influential movement? And part of the answer to that is look at a couple of pandemics that happened. In fact, pandemics have always been a time in which God's people, they didn't step back, they stepped up. And they pointed people to the hope that could only be found in Jesus. In AD 260, while Marcus Aurelius was emperor, a plague struck. Now, some have thought it was smallpox that struck the Roman Empire, but over a 15-year period, it killed a quarter to a third of the entire Roman Empire. The estimates at the time were that there were about 45,000 Christians living in Rome. Now, this equaled up to about 8% of basically the population of the empire. Despite their small number, their response to the pandemic won the admiration and a greater following. In fact, Dionysius, the bishop of Alexandria, reported this: "Most of our brother and sister Christians showed unbounded love and loyalty, never sparing themselves and thinking only of one another. Heedless of danger, they took charge of the sick, attending to their every need and ministering to them in Christ. And with them departed this life serenely happy, for they were infected by others with a disease, drawing on themselves the sickness of their neighbors and cheerfully accepting their pains. Many, in nursing and curing others, transferred their debt to themselves and died in their stead." Now, I want to tell you, when you read that, that's pretty sobering. Now, I'm not suggesting that we need to unnecessarily put ourselves in harm's way, but what I am wanting you to notice is it was Christ's followers who were the first ones who rushed to the front lines. It was Christ's followers who stepped up, and they didn't shrink back. They were not afraid. They feared not. A number of our medical professionals, doctors and nurses today, are putting themselves in harm's way. And they're leaning into all this. They've been doing it now for a while. And we've been praying over them, praying for their health, praying for their safety, praying for their families. Church, this is when we need to step into this, right now. This is when we don't succumb to fear. We hold on to hope, and we point people to the hope that can be found only in Jesus. We take the energy of our fear and turn it into love, and we comfort others, and we encourage others, and we pray for others. We love others with the love of Jesus Christ, because Jesus has so richly given that love to us. Christians were different throughout history. And today we need to be different as well. One of the worst things that could happen to us might be one of the best things that could happen in us and through us. I love what Pastor Andy Stanley said. He said, when the story of COVID-19 is just a story that we tell, let's make sure our stories we're proud to tell. I love that. In other words, one day in the future, when we look back on all these trying times, and it's just a story that we tell others, may we be proud of the stories we tell. May we talk about how it produced in us a greater faith and a greater hope and a greater love within us. May it be one of the finest hours of the church. And we lead more and more people to the hope that can only be found in Jesus. Now is one of the finest moments to demonstrate the hope that we have in Christ. All right, to not succumb to fear, but to lean into love. And could we, as a church right now, be able to say with such joy and uncertain times that God is good? God is good all the time. And all the time, God is good. Can we say that truly with all of our hearts? I hope that you can today. I can. How about you? Let's pray. Father God, we come to you right now. And I know there's a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty still in the world today. And God, we just need to be honest about what we're feeling. But Father, we want to take that and channel that fear to you. God, more than ever, we cry out to you. God, we choose this day to lean into who you are. We lean into your character. We lean into your attributes. God, we rehearse your names over and over again in our minds and our hearts. You are the God who heals. You are the God who intervenes. You are the God who makes a way when there seems to be no way. You are the God who wants to make a difference in our lives and through our lives. So God, right now we need a miracle worker. And we know that you're going to actively do miracles right now in and through your people. God, we don't want to miss it. We don't want to miss out on this. God, let us be awakened by your Holy Spirit to what it is that you want to do in these days. So Father, right now, I pray that you would give strength to the people who really need it. Lord, those who are listening today, Lord, who need your strength, God, I pray that you would pour your strength into their lives. That if there are some right now who are listening today who feel like they have succumbed to fear, God, I pray, I ask that your Holy Spirit would just minister to their hearts and minds right now. God, I pray that you would give them the courage that's needed. God, give them the boldness and the strength that is needed to lean into you. And God, I pray that we would do this together because we are better together. We find strength in one another. God, we believe that you are good. You are good all the time. Even in the midst of a crisis like this, all the time you are good. Father, we praise you. We ask all this today in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, I want to thank you for being with us today. God bless you. See you next week.
Hey friends, thanks again for joining us today for Church Online. We love that we get to be a part of your personal and corporate faith journey. If you're interested in taking the next steps in your relationship with Christ and our church family, we would love to talk to you. To learn more about next steps, visit us online at ringgoldchurch.com/nextsteps. We believe growing people change, so we want to invite you to join us for Mended Life Talk on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. We will be diving deeper into today's message with questions, scripture, and challenges to go deeper in our faith walk. Don't miss out on this incredible time of devotion. If you haven't already done so, now is a great time to set up online giving. We want to thank you for financially giving to Ringgold so we can continue to serve and make an impact in our different communities and our world. Giving is an important step to spiritual growth and maturity. You can give online through the Ringgold Church app or at ringgoldchurch.com/give. If you are not comfortable with giving online, you can also visit ringgoldchurch.com/give to view other possible ways to give as well. Well, thanks for hanging out with us today. We can't wait to see you next time at Ringgold Church Online.